They sank a ship. Not in a movie, not in a war game exercise. A real ship, in real water, gone. And the US Navy just confirmed they pulled the trigger. Before you close this thinking this is another fear-driven headline, wait a moment. What actually happened is more complicated than most news reports explain. Depending on how the next 72 hours unfold, this could either be a small incident or a moment historians talk about for decades. Let's break down what happened, why the United States did it, who is involved, and what it could mean. No panic, just facts and questions. A vessel reportedly linked to an opposing faction was moving through a highly strategic waterway. This is not just any part of the ocean, it is one of the most important shipping routes in the world. Every week, billions of dollars of oil, cargo, and military supply shipments pass through this area. The U.S. Navy had reportedly been tracking the ship for several days. Multiple warnings were issued, radio calls were made. The ship did not stop. Then the decision was made. A torpedo launched from a U.S. submarine struck the vessel. Within minutes, the ship sank. The Pentagon confirmed the strike and described it as a defensive action. According to officials, the vessel posed an immediate threat to Allied forces in the region. But there are still many unanswered questions. Who authorized the strike? What exactly was on that ship? And was this a single isolated decision or the first move in a much larger situation? To understand why this matters, you need to look at the bigger picture. Right now, several unusual things are happening at the same time. First, U.S. carrier strike groups are deployed in multiple global hotspots simultaneously. Second, diplomatic communication between Washington and the opposing nation has reportedly slowed down significantly. Third, the United Nations Security Council called an emergency session within hours of the incident. That alone shows how seriously world leaders are taking this event. Does this mean a global war is starting tomorrow? No, but it does mean the risk of military escalation has increased. Next, it's important to understand who is involved and what each side might gain. For the United States, the official message is deterrence. The signal is simple. If a red line is crossed, there will be consequences. For the opposing side, losing a ship publicly could be seen as humiliation, but some analysts believe it may also have been a test, a way to measure how far the United States would go. Regional allies are watching closely. Some of them have been asking Washington to take stronger action for a long time. And then there are the other global powers. China and Russia both issued statements criticizing the strike, but so far neither country has moved military assets in response. That could change depending on how the situation develops. History shows that moments like this rarely depend on a single event. In 1914, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand triggered World War I, but the real cause was decades of rising tension and alliances forming beneath the surface. In 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis brought the world dangerously close to nuclear conflict. What prevented disaster was diplomacy and communication. The lesson from history is simple. Major conflicts rarely begin because of one event alone. They happen when many pressures build up at the same time. That is why incidents like this matter. So what does all of this mean for ordinary people? First, there is no reason to panic. Second, watch the economic signals, especially energy markets. If tensions increase in this region, oil prices and shipping costs could rise quickly. Third, pay attention to diplomatic activity. Real progress usually happens through quiet meetings, not public statements. And finally, stay informed and keep asking questions. The first reports after events like this are rarely the full story. More information will emerge over the next few days. Right now, one thing is certain. A major military decision has just been made.
Whether it becomes a historical turning point or just a brief headline will depend on what happens next. Stay informed, stay calm, and keep watching how the situation develops.